Every empire has a collapse. Every hero faces a moment where the crown slips. For Lionel Messi, that moment came not once, but 3 times. The World Cup lost in 2014, the Copa America slipped away in 2015, and in 2016, one missed penalty, one scream into the night. The greatest player alive finally broke. He turned his back on the crest he'd carried since childhood, walked away from the flag that crowned him king, and for a heartbeat, football itself stood still. But fate doesn't let its chosen ones rest. It drags them back, bruised, haunted, human, and asks for one last miracle. Over the next 30 minutes, you'll see how the man who quit his country became its savior, and how the night that nearly killed Messi gave birth to the legend that would outlive us all. On July 13, 2014, the world watched as Lionel Messi led Argentina out of the tunnel at the Maracanã. 80,000 people inside the stadium, nearly 1 billion watching from home. This was supposed to be his night, the night the little boy from Rosario finally lifted the one trophy that had always escaped him. He had done everything else. 4 Champions Leagues, Ballon d'Ors, hundreds of goals that defied logic. The only thing missing was the World Cup, the same trophy that turned Diego Maradona into a god. For Argentina, that comparison wasn't cruel, it was cultural. Maradona had given them identity. Messi was supposed to give them immortality. And now, standing on Brazilian soil, the home of their oldest rivals, he had a chance to finish the story his hero started. For Messi, and perhaps Argentina, it had been a brilliant tournament. Messi scored 4 goals, including 2 match winners in the group stage, and carried Argentina to their first final in 24 years. Even when his hamstring began to tighten, he kept going, playing through the pain, hiding the limp, smiling through exhaustion. Argentina wasn't the most talented team in South America, but they had something no one else did: Messi. Every pass, every dribble, every run was followed by a nation's heartbeat. They believed because he believed. And when he walked onto that field in Rio de Janeiro, he wasn't just a footballer, he was a national promise wearing number 10. From the first whistle, it felt like history was watching. Germany were cold and methodical, and they met Messi's magic with precision. Tackles flew, tempers rose, the Maracanã vibrated under the weight of every near miss. In the 21st minute, Toni Kroos misjudged a header. The ball rolled kindly for Gonzalo Higuain, alone, 12 yards out, time frozen. Gonzalo Higuain had the golden chance, a gift from Toni Kroos, but shanked it wide. Messi stood still, eyes closed, hands on his head, the kind of silence that only comes from disbelief. Minutes later, in the second half, it was his turn to rewrite fate. A pass split the German back line and fell kindly to Messi. He took it in stride, one touch, another, the whole world leaning with him. Neuer frozen, the goal was literally wide open, but Messi rolled the ball inches past the post. Messi looked to the heavens, almost asking for an answer. None came. The night dragged on like a wound refusing to close. Bodies collided, sweat and mud painting the story in real time. Every second that passed felt heavier than the one before. Even the commentators began to whisper, as though speaking louder might jinx destiny. And then, minute 113, a cross from Schürrle. Mario Götze controls it on his chest, volleys it past Romero. The net ripples. Germany 1, Argentina 0. For a moment, time truly stopped. The cheers of the German fans didn't sound like joy. They sounded like they were mocking their rivals. Messi stood rooted, eyes glassy under the floodlights. He didn't shout, didn't fall. He simply watched as the ball rolled back out of the net. And in that single glance, you could see it. The quiet realization that sometimes, even the chosen one can't outrun fate. When the final whistle blew, Messi didn't collapse. He just stood there, motionless. He watched Germany celebrate, fireworks lighting up a night that should have been his. As he walked past the World Cup trophy, the cameras followed, waiting for a reaction. There was none. Later, when FIFA handed him the golden ball as the tournament's best player, he held it like a punishment. He didn't smile. He didn't even look up. It wasn't an award, it was a reminder of what he hadn't won. That night, the photos told the story better than words. Messi, head down, medal dull against the floodlights, 1 billion hearts breaking with him. Back home, people still loved him, but the whispers had begun. He's no Maradona. He can't win with Argentina. And deep down, Messi feared they might be right. For most players, losing a World Cup final is the end of a dream. For Messi, it became the start of a curse, because 1 year later, football handed him another chance. The same colours, the same weight, the same promise of redemption. Only this time, it wouldn't be Germany waiting for him. It would be Chile. Messi thought he had left his pain behind in Rio, but as he stepped onto South American soil, he would realise you can't outrun ghosts when you carry them inside you. 1 year later, Messi was back. He told himself this time would be different. New year, new tournament, new ending. And on July 4th, 2015, Messi was in the same blue and white shirts, the same number 10. Another final, another chance at redemption. But this time, it felt different. The sun over the Andes burned harsher. The air carried hostility instead of hope. Argentina weren't walking into a stadium, they were walking into an ambush. From the stands, Chile's supporters screamed themselves hoarse. They weren't just cheering for victory, they were praying for vengeance. Every time Messi touched the ball, 40,000 voices spat the same words. Fraud, pecho frio, or cold chest, the insult that cuts deeper than any tackle. He'd returned to football's altar to heal his scars, but Santiago's fans only reopened them. Prior to the final, Argentina's run had been professional, almost surgical. Messi had 1 goal and 3 assists. Not his flashiest tournament, but his calm, calculating orchestration carried them here. He wasn't chasing glory anymore. He needed to bring his whole team to the world stage and rewrite history. But football, like fate, has a cruel sense of timing. After the trauma of Rio, Messi needed redemption. Instead, he found déjà vu. The pitch was hard, the game ugly. Kicks flew more often than passes. Fouls piled up like body counts. Every Chilean tackle came with intent. Every whistle sounded late. It wasn't a match, it was a test of endurance. And through it all, Messi kept going. Low centre of gravity, darting runs, absorbing kicks and taunts like rain on stone. He'd get up, adjust his socks, and try again. But for all his brilliance, Argentina couldn't break through. Higuain squandered chances. Di Maria limped off injured. By half-time, even the commentators sounded nervous. It was Rio 2014 all over again. The same frustration, the same tension, the same script. As the clock bled into the final minutes, every Argentine touch felt heavier, every Chilean clearance louder. Messi drifted deeper, trying to pull the strings, but found only red shirts and resistance. The pitch had turned into a battlefield of ghosts, every blade of grass whispering a reminder of the last time they stood here, inches from salvation. When the referee's whistle finally blew to end extra time, no one celebrated. Not Chile, not Argentina, not even the crowd. Both teams gathered in the centre circle, shoulders slumped, eyes on the ground. Messi wiped sweat from his face and glanced up at the scoreboard 0-0 like staring into a mirror of the past. And then came the moment football loves most and players fear the deepest, the penalty shootout. Chile's first. Fernandez walks up to the spot, short run-up, top corner. Romero guessed wrong. Next was Messi. He placed the ball carefully, almost tenderly, as though handling something fragile. Across from him stood Claudio Bravo, friend, former teammate, now executioner. The world shrank to 2 men and 12 yards of history. Bravo bounced lightly on his line, eyes fixed on Messi's. Messi exhaled. 1 step, 2, strike. Low and hard, left corner. Bravo guessed right, but Messi was too clinical. The sound that followed wasn't a roar, it was a dagger, twisting in slow motion. From there, the shootout unfolded like slow torture. Arturo Vidal drilled straight down the middle. 2-0 Chile. Higuain blazed it over the bar, too high, too soon. He held his head as Chile's fans screamed his name like a curse. Chile converted their penalties, one after another. The camera cut to Messi, eyes glazed, expression blank, as the red confetti began to fall. Chile 4, Argentina 1, final whistle, game over, again. When the officials approached him with the golden ball yet again as the award for the tournament's best player, he refused to take it. "It doesn't feel right," he murmured. He walked away. In the dressing room, he sat in silence. No tears, no shouting, just the slow sound of tape being ripped off aching legs. That night, he didn't speak to reporters, because he knew what they'd say. That he wasn't Diego, that he couldn't lead, that Argentina would never win with him. And somewhere deep inside, for the first time, Lionel Messi started to believe them. Because heartbreak hadn't just found him twice, it was starting to live inside him. And that night, something else happened to him. He didn't dream of lifting trophies. He dreamed of walking away. And a year later, in New Jersey, he finally would. The 2016 Copa America wasn't just another tournament, it was meant to be redemption in disguise. A special Centenario edition, celebrating 100 years of South American football. For Messi, it felt more like the final chapter of a cruel story that refused to end. Messi arrived in the United States carrying a heavy baggage. He carried the scars of Brazil, the bruises of Santiago, and a nation's last ounce of patience. The message from home was clear: win or walk away. And yet, in the weeks leading up to the final, he was magnificent. 5 goals, 4 assists, football that looked like rebellion. He smiled again. Against the United States in the semi-final, he bent a free kick into the top corner and became Argentina's all-time leading scorer, 55 goals, each one a reminder of how close genius and pain can coexist. In that moment, the curse felt lifted. The boy from Rosario was back. He even laughed in training, lighter, freer, as if destiny had finally forgiven him. But football, as ever, was waiting with its cruelest trick. On June 26, 2016, in the MetLife Stadium, 82,000 fans packed into the arena, red smoke from Chilean flares drifting across the pitch like bad omens. It was the 3rd time Argentina and Chile had met in a major final in 3 years. The 3rd time Messi would face the same anthem, the same flag, the same unshakable dread. It was his 3rd final in a row. From the kickoff, it was war disguised as football. Tackles flew in every direction, tempers flared, the referee's whistle became background noise. Chile pressed high, kicked harder, and hunted Messi in packs. He tried everything, drifting wide, dropping deep, carrying the ball through a sea of red. But every time he rose, Chile dragged him back down. By half-time, the frustration in his face said everything. He wasn't playing a game anymore, he was reliving trauma. Extra time arrived yet again like a bad joke. No goals, no relief, just exhaustion. When the whistle blew and the referee pointed to the spot, it was penalties again. The déjà vu became unbearable. Even the crowd knew what was coming. They had seen this movie before, and somehow Messi just hoped this story might for once be written for him, but he was wrong. Messi stepped up first. He didn't rush, didn't look nervous. But the stillness in his eyes wasn't confidence, it was emptiness. A man running on memory. He placed the ball on the spot, inhaled once, and glanced at the sky like he'd done 100 times before. 12 yards to piece. But as the whistle blew, he took 3 steps, swung his left foot, and slipped. The ball flew over the crossbar, spiraling into the night. For a second, no one moved. No cheers, no jeers, just silence. Messi's face collapsed into his hands. He bit his lip, eyes wet, shoulders shaking. Not from pain, from disbelief, from the bad memory rush of his almost times. Behind him, Chile celebrated again, and from that moment, the rest was routine, like it was 2015 all over again. Chile won 4-2 inches the shootout, history repeating itself like a cruel loop. Messi stood in the centre circle, staring at the pitch that had swallowed his dream 3 times in 3 years. The cameras zoomed in sweat, tears, heartbreak, disbelief. It was no longer a tragedy, it was something of a curse. When the final whistle echoed, something inside him went quiet. He didn't argue with the referee, he didn't look at his teammates. He simply turned, walked down the tunnel, and disappeared. As the curtains closed on the celebrations in the stadiums, something else was happening in the dressing room. Something so big, even the president of the country had to intervene. When the final whistle blew in New Jersey, it ended a match. When Lionel Messi spoke afterward, it ended an era. Cameras crowded around him, flashes burning his face, questions slicing through the air. His voice cracked before the words even came out. It's done. The national team is over for me. I'm proud of everything I've achieved. But sometimes, you have to accept when it's over. No anger, no theatrics, just exhaustion. The kind that comes from carrying too much for too long. For a moment, the room was silent. Even the reporters lowered their microphones, unsure if they'd heard him right. He left the interview mid-sentence, walked past security, and disappeared down the tunnel. Behind him, his words began to echo, first through whispers, then through headlines, then through history. Within hours, it wasn't just news, it was a shock. TV anchors interrupted broadcasts. Fans in Buenos Aires crowded outside cafes, eyes glued to screens, mouths open. One headline read, "Messi quits Argentina." Another, "Football loses its heartbeat." By midnight, social media had turned into a funeral. Clips of him crying in the final played on loop, slow motion, zoomed in, accompanied by piano music and heartbreak emojis. Hashtags like "Nutavayas Leo," "Don't go Leo," trended worldwide. In Rosario, murals that once said "Gracias Leo" were painted over with one desperate word, "Vuelva." Argentina didn't just lose a footballer, they lost their symbol. Politicians gave speeches, broadcasters wept on live TV. Even the president, Mauricio Macri, issued a statement. "We are proud of Messi. I hope he reconsiders. He makes us happy." The national team was in chaos. Without him, they had no captain, no direction, no identity. Every pundit debated the same impossible question: what is Argentina without Messi? And as those questions echoed through the country, a movement began. A petition started online, a simple plea: "Messi, don't leave us." By dawn, it had crossed 100,000 signatures. By afternoon, 500,000. By the next day, 1.2 million people had signed their names, begging their broken hero to return. Meanwhile, Messi was silent. He ignored the noise, shut off his phone, and hid from the world for weeks. No interviews, no photos, just family, solitude, and reflection. Friends later said he looked peaceful, not happy, but relieved. The weight was gone. For the first time since he was a teenager, he didn't owe the world anything. But peace, for a man like Messi, was never built to last. Because football doesn't wait, it calls. And sooner or later, the same people who broke you will beg you to come home. Weeks later, as the 2018 World Cup qualifiers approached, Argentina began to struggle. Defeats piled up. The press screamed, "No Messi, no magic." And somewhere in Rosario, the phone rang. By August 2016, the boy who swore he'd never wear the blue and white again picked it back up. He wasn't healed, he wasn't even ready. But legends rarely get to choose when their story continues. In August 2016, Argentina was collapsing. The World Cup qualifiers had turned into a national emergency. Without Messi, the team looked lost. Draws, defeats, headlines filled with despair. Every mistake screamed the same accusation: this wouldn't have happened if he were here. So, when Lionel Messi announced his return, it felt like a rescue mission, a reluctant savior stepping back into the storm. But even when he returned, he didn't smile at the press conference. He didn't promise trophies. He just said quietly, "I love this country too much to see it like this." That was enough. For Argentina, hope returned overnight. But inside, nothing had changed. The same doubts lingered. The same ghosts whispered that maybe he wasn't meant to win in these colours. Still, he laced his boots, put on the captain's armband, and carried the flag again, a burden disguised as pride. In the next months, his brilliance flickered between exhaustion and defiance. He'd drag Argentina through qualifiers almost single-handedly, scoring goals that looked like prayers answered too late. Assists carved out of pure desperation. And yet, the same questions never stopped echoing. Can Messi ever win with Argentina? Can he ever be Diego? The more he tried to silence them, the louder they became. Finally, everything came down to Argentina's final qualifier. Lose, and they missed the World Cup for the first time in nearly 50 years. And exactly 2 minutes in, it looked like this cruel joke was going to continue as Ecuador scored. The crowd explodes, Argentina froze. But then, Messi takes over. First, he scores an insane equaliser with a shot driven low. Then another, a left-footed strike so pure it silences the stadium. Then a third, a solo run that defied gravity and fatigue. Hat-trick. Argentina 3, Ecuador 1. For a moment, the whole world exhaled with him. Commentators screamed, "Messi has saved Argentina." The boy who had carried his country through heartbreak after heartbreak had done it again, not because he wanted to, but because no one else could. But try as Messi did, the curse just wouldn't die. Russia 2018 was a new World Cup, a new chance, but the story refused to change. In the round of 16 vs France, Mbappé ran wild. Argentina fell to his feet 4-3. Another tournament, another heartbreak, the same ending. Then came 2019, Copa America in Brazil. Messi and his team suffered yet again another semi-final defeat. Messi's interview afterward was raw, defiant. He literally said, "The corruption is unbelievable." He was fined, suspended, and criticised again. Even when he fought back, football found a way to punish him. By the end of 2019, Messi had everything a footballer could dream of, and nothing his soul had ever wanted. No major trophy with Argentina, no closure. He'd carried his country through storms, only to be blamed for the rain. But fate, for all its cruelty, loves symmetry. The same game that broke him 3 times was about to offer him redemption twice. 2 summers later, in 2021, Messi would walk into another Copa America, older, quieter, wiser. But this time, the ghosts would follow him there too, but they wouldn't make it out alive. For years, it felt like football was punishing him for something he couldn't name. Every final ended in heartbreak, every headline a reminder of what he wasn't. Not a leader, not Maradona, not enough. But almost quietly, something happened. Argentina began a comeback so good it felt scripted. And the entire script started in Brazil, the one place Argentina had always feared, the home of their oldest rivals. And yet, it was here that Lionel Messi's curse would finally die. When the Copa America began, Argentina weren't favourites. They were just a team of veterans and kids who were good, not great. But this time, something was different. Messi had finally snapped. He wasn't chasing ghosts anymore. He was leading them. He didn't shout. He didn't preach. He smiled. He played like a man who had finally stopped trying to prove something. And what came after was an outrageous 4 goals and 5 assists. Every free kick a love letter to the game that had once broken him. Then came the night, July 10th, 2021, Maracanã Stadium, Rio de Janeiro, Argentina versus Brazil. The same stadium where his heartbreak began 7 years earlier, only this time he walked in with pain, but walked out in peace. The match was chaotic, fouls, whistles, nerves, until Angel Di Maria flicked the ball over Ederson. 1-0 Argentina. When the final whistle blew, Lionel Messi fell to his knees. Tears, relief, laughter. Teammates lifted him onto their shoulders, chanting his name through tears. For the first time, Argentina didn't look to him for salvation. They carried him like the king he truly was. Cameras caught the moment, Messi sitting alone on the grass, staring at the trophy he'd chased for 16 years. He smiled, quietly, as if whispering to his younger self, "We finally did it." But destiny wasn't finished. It had one more crown to offer. Qatar 2022 was a tournament that felt less like competition and more like prophecy. For the first time, Lionel Messi walked into a World Cup, not as a man trying to prove himself, but as a man at peace with who he was. The world watched him differently too, and what unfolded was something no engineer could have dared to invent. 7 matches, 7 masterpieces, assists like puzzles only he could solve, goals that seemed to pause time itself. It wasn't pressure anymore, it was poetry. Then came the final, Argentina versus France. The biggest stage of all, and football's cruelest trick, another penalty shootout. Was the curse going to happen yet again? The scoreline said 3-3 after extra time. The tension, unbearable. But this time, the air felt different. For Messi, there was no fear, no curse, just belief. Messi stepped up first. Left foot, calm, perfect, the net rippled like silk. Around him, young faces like Enzo Fernandez and Julian Alvarez looked to him not as a saviour, but as proof that redemption is real. When Montiel scored the winning penalty, Messi didn't sprint, he dropped to his knees again, the same gesture as Maracanã, but now with joy instead of grief. Teammates swarmed him. The camera caught his face buried in the golden trophy, whispering words no microphone could catch. Peter Drury's voice trembled over the broadcast. Lionel Messi has conquered his final peak. He has shaken hands with paradise. It wasn't just a World Cup win, it was forgiveness made visible. The same man who once said, "It's over," now stood on top of the world, laughing, crying, hugging his children in the stands. He had gone from being the boy who couldn't lift a trophy to the man who lifted football itself. And as Messi kissed that golden trophy under the lights of Lusail, you could almost hear the universe sigh. The story was finally complete. For years, Lionel Messi carried the weight of expectation, heartbreak, and comparison. He was measured against ghosts, told he wasn't Maradona, that he couldn't lead, that he'd never win. And yet, every failure became a seed buried deep, growing quietly in the dark. Because greatness doesn't come from victory, it comes from how you survive defeat. Messi's story was never about football alone. It was about the human soul, about falling, breaking, doubting, and finding the strength to rise again. And for Argentina, a country that had lived through 3 decades of longing, that persistence was rewarded. Lionel Messi didn't just win football's biggest prize, he rewrote what it means to fall and still find glory. If this story moved you, hit subscribe for more inspiring stories from the world of sport. Comment below and tell us, what's your greatest comeback moment?